day to all learners and welcome. Today I am guiding us through KMO6 KTO3, which focuses on human resource management. Let's take a look. By the end of our session today, you and I will have a clear practical understanding of 12 areas. 1. The foundations of human resource management and employee relations. 2. The key labor legislation that frames our responsibilities. 3. The concept of work, standards of personal conduct, and job performance. 4. The essentials of employment contracts and duties. 5. How disciplinary action works fairly and lawfully. 6. Recruitment and selection. 7. Development and training. 8. Workplace diversity. 9. Performance management. 10. Coaching and mentoring. 11. Customer service and service level agreements. And 12. Outcomes-based assessments. I will keep examples grounded in our manufacturing context so that you can apply the ideas immediately on the floor. And here is what I intend for you to walk away with. I want you to be able to reference the right law or policy in plain language. I want you to handle day-to-day people issues confidently and fairly. I also want you to document decisions so that they withstand review and help your people grow. And lastly, I want to make links for the formative and summative assessments so that you can answer with confidence. With that destination set, I begin by building the blocks of HRM and employee relations. Let's begin. When I say human resource management, I mean the set of methods and processes to ensure that the right people are in the right roles, working safely and productively, and developing over time. I see employee relations as the quality of the working relationship between the organization and its people, both vertically between supervisors and employees, and horizontally across teams. I apply human resource management through clear policies, consistent procedures, and fair communication. I open channels for two-way feedback during shift handovers, toolbar talks, and performance conversations. I treat issues early and document agreements so that trust is built over time. Vertical employee relations refers to the relationship between management and employees. Horizontal employee relations refer to the relationships among employees and teams. I pay attention to both because productivity and safety depend on both of the authority structure and the peer culture. With foundations in place, I turn to the labor laws and structures that guide fair practice. Let's take a look. When it comes to labor legislation and structures, I work within 3 cornerstone labor laws. The Labor Relations Act promotes fair labor practices, regulates collective bargaining and industrial action, and sets rules for dismissals. The Employment Equity Act advances equal opportunity by eliminating unfair discrimination and implementing affirmative action where required. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act sets minimum conditions like hours, leave, overtime, and notice. I ensure our shift practices and roster comply with these. I understand unfair labor practices, for example, unfair conduct relating to promotion, demotion, training, provision of benefits, unfair suspension or failure to restain or reemploy. I avoid these by using objective criteria, keeping records, and giving employees a voice in decisions. Organized labor is part of our environment. I respect reconnection in agreements, the right to join a union, and the rules of engagement for consultations and wage negotiations. I prepare thoroughly for meetings by bringing accurate production and safety data. On safety and health, the role of safety, health, environment, and quality representative is to inspect, report hazards, participate in incident investigations, and promote compliance. I support the representative by acting on findings and providing access to information. I am aware of the competition authorities and the basic idea that we must not engage in any anti-competitive behavior with other firms. This matters when we discuss wages or poaching practices with external parties. I keep to legal and ethical boundaries. I also know the practical thresholds and procedures that affect daily scheduling and pay. Normal hours are set by law and by the sector agreements. Overtime requires consent and must be compensated at the prescribed rates. Rest periods and meal intervals are protected. Night work and Sunday or public holiday work have special rules. I check that shift patterns reflect these and I keep attendance, overtime, and leave records accurate because these documents are relied upon in audits and in disputes. When disputes arise, I follow the internal grievance and disciplinary procedures first. If issues escalate, I understand the path to the CCMA or a bargaining council, the timeframes for referral, and the need for clear documentary evidence. I keep minutes of meetings, notices, and outcomes so that our actions remain procedurally and substantially fair. With the legal frame clear, I move to how work and conduct are defined and managed daily. When it comes to work concept, conduct, and performance, I define work as the set of tasks and responsibilities an employee agrees to perform to meet organizational objectives. Standards of personal conduct include punctuality, respectful behavior, following safety rules, and care for company property. Standards of job performance include meeting quantity and quality targets, following work instructions, and participating in improvement. Respect and obedience in the workplace are practical. I expect employees to carry out lawful and reasonable instructions, to treat colleagues and supervisors with respect. I model this by giving clear instructions, listening, and explaining the why behind decisions. When performance dips, I diagnose the cause: skill, will, or environment. Skills need training, will needs coaching and consequences, and environment needs tools or processes fixes. Once expectations are clear, I ensure the contracts and duties are equally fair and clear. Now let's move on to employment contracts and duties. A written employment contract sets the relationship on firm footing. I check that every employee receives a contract that states the job title, reporting line, place of work, hours, pay, leave, probation if applicable, and notice periods. I attach or reference key policies like safety rules and code conduct. I ensure safe and healthy working conditions by enforcing safety standards, providing PPE, ensuring machines are guarded, and stopping unsafe work. Entering and remaining in service requires the employee to be present and available for duties as registered and rostered, with attendance managed through rosters and leave systems. Productive capacity and reasonable efficiency mean the employee must perform at the standard expected for the role. I provide training, SOPs, and clear targets to support this. Reciprocity in the contract means both the employer and employee owe each other duties. The employer pays on time, provides work and a safe environment, while the employee furthers the employer's business interests, avoid conflicts of interest, and refrains from misconduct like theft, intoxication, harassment, or willful damage. I explain these duties on day one and reinforce them in supervision. I verify that any fixed term or probation clauses are used for genuine operational reasons and that the reviews are conducted on time. I explain confidentiality and intellectual property clauses where they apply. I make sure employees know where to find policies on leave, overtime, and benefits. And I acknowledge receipts in writing so expectations are clear. When conduct or performance falls short, I follow a fair disciplinary process. Now we are taking a look at disciplinary action. Disciplinary action is a structured response to misconduct or unacceptable performance. I follow a process that is consistent, progressive, and procedurally fair. Start with counseling and warnings where appropriate. For serious misconduct, I initiate a formal inquiry with notice, an opportunity for representation, and impartial chairperson. I gather facts, keep minutes, and communicate outcomes clearly. The aim is corrective, to change behavior, and to protect the work environment, not to punish for its own sake. Distinguish between incapacity for performance and misconduct. Performance incapacity centers on inability despite efforts and training. I use performance improvement plans with clear targets, support, and review dates. Misconduct involves willful breach of rules such as insubordination, theft, fraud, violence, harassment, or safety violations. I assess consistency with past cases, mitigating and aggravating factors before deciding on sanctions. I ensure procedural fairness by issuing clear charges, providing reasonable time to prepare, allowing presentation where policy provides, and recording the hearing. I ensure substantive fairness by providing the rule existed, the employee knew or should have known it, the rule was reasonable, and it was broken. I apply progressive discipline unless the offense justifies summary dismissal. With standards and consequences clear, I turn to getting the right people on board. Now let's take a look at recruitment and selection. I recruit to a clear need. I write a concise job profile with essential duties, competencies, and physical demands. I advertise fairly, shortlist against objective criteria, and interview with structured questions. I check references, verify qualifications where relevant, and run any required medicals or fitness checks lawfully. Selection means choosing the best fit based on merits and organizational needs while complying with equity requirements. I document my decisions so that I show fairness. I plan onboarding so that new hires receive safety induction, process training, and a buddy to accelerate integration and reduce early attrition. I prepare interview guides that probe for safety mindsets, problem solving, teamwork, and the ability to follow standard work. I avoid unlawful questions and bias triggers. I use work samples or skill tests where appropriate and validate that assessments relate to job requirements. I keep a complete recruit file, including adverts, shortlists, interview notes, and selection rationale. Once people are in, I help them grow deliberately. Now let's take a look at development and training. I analyze training needs from safety incidents, quality escapes, new equipment, and performance reviews. I choose appropriate methods such as classroom instruction for concepts, on the job coaching for skills, simulation for safety critical tasks, and blended learning where needed. I set clear learning outcomes, provide practice with feedback, and measure transfer using the job checks. I record training completed, assess competence sign off against standards, and refresh as defined intervals. I link development to career paths so that employees see progress and stay engaged. I evaluate training effectiveness at four simple levels. Reaction asks whether the training was relevant and clear. Learning checks whether knowledge or skill increased using a quick quiz or demonstration. Behavior examines whether the new skill is used on the job after a period, and results look for impact on safety, quality, delivery, and cost. I adjust the program based on these findings. A strong culture also depends on how we handle difference. Let's move on to workplace diversity. Our workplace includes different backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, values, race, age, sex, language, and education. I treat diversity as a strength and manage the risks of discrimination. I identify potential sources of discrimination and address them through fair policies, training on bias and respectful behavior, and clear reporting channels. I intervene early in conflicts and use structured resolution methods. I promote sensitivity, listening, and inclusion so that everyone can contribute. I recognize forms of bias such as confirmation bias, affinity bias, and stereotype bias, and I design processes to reduce their impact. I use diverse interview panels where possible, standardize criteria, and give equal access to development opportunities. Where reasonable accommodation is needed for disability or religious observance, I work with HR to find practical solutions that maintain safety and productivity. Where people are supported, I drive performance in a structured way. Let's take a look at performance management. Performance management is the ongoing process of planning, coaching, reviewing, and rewarding performance. I set clear, measurable goals aligned to safety, quality, delivery, and cost. I observe work, give regular feedback, and remove obstacles. I hold formal reviews on schedule using evidence like output, scrap, attendance, and teamwork. I recognize good performance and address gaps with development plans or consequences when necessary. I keep records so that decisions are fair and defendable. Make goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I separate behavior feedback from results feedback. I ensure employees know the standard, have the means to reach it, and understand the consequences of not reaching it. When needed, I initiate a performance improvement plan with clear milestones and support, and I review progress on set dates. Coaching and mentoring are two tools I use to build capacity. When it comes to coaching and mentoring, it is important to remember coaching is a short cycle, performance focused conversation that helps an employee improve a task or behavior now. I ask questions, demonstrate, observe, and give feedback. Mentoring is a longer term relationship focused on growth and career. As a mentor, I share experience, open doors, and encourage reflection. I use both appropriately, keeping sessions purposeful and respectful of time. For coaching, I follow a simple structure. I agree on the goal for the task. I explore the current reality with data. I identify options together with practice, job aids, or shadowing. I end with what the employee will do and by when. For mentoring, I set expectations for meeting topics, confidentiality, and I keep the mentee in the driver's seat. I now connect our internal people practices to how we face our customers. Let's move on to customer service and service level agreements. Customer service means meeting or exceeding expectations on quality, leading time, cost, and communication. Clarify internal and external customer expectations and ensure we have service level agreements where appropriate. Define what we will deliver, how we will measure it, and how we will handle exceptions or complaints. I keep teams informed about customer priorities and feedback so that we make the right trade-offs when things get tight. In an SLA, I include the scope of service, service levels, and metrics, responsibilities, communication, and escalation paths, and dispute resolution. Review SLA performance regularly, capture lessons, and adjust processes to prevent repeat issues. I link customer complaints to corrective actions and verify effectiveness. And now we are taking a look at the integrated scenario, handling a performance and conduct case. A new machine operator has repeated minor quality escapes and 2 late arrivals. I start with coaching at the station, demonstrating the critical inspection step and checking understanding. I review the work instruction and run a supervised cycle. I check whether there is a training gap or a tooling issue. I reinforce the attendance expectations and agree on a corrective plan. I record the discussion. When a third late arrival occurs and another escape reaches rework, I issue a written warning in line with policy. I outline consequences and support available, like pairing with a mentor for 2 weeks. If performance improves, I recognize it in monthly review. If not, I proceed with a fair inquiry. Throughout, I keep diversity and fairness in mind, avoid unfair labor practices, and ensure working hours and overtime comply with law. I escalate to HR where necessary and keep the safety, quality, delivery, cost, and morale objectives in view. Keep documentation complete. I file the job profile, induction checklist, training records, coaching notes, warnings, and review outcomes. I ensure witnesses, dates, and times are recorded accurately. I follow up on actions to closure and communicate outcomes to the employee, HR, and where needed, the union representative. I now link today's content to your assessments and the exact outcomes we targeted. Let's take a look. Your summative questions ask you to identify, discuss, and explain labor legislation, the concept of work and conduct, workplace diversity, and the human resource management methods and processes. In your answers, use plain language. Name the relevant law or policy, define the concept, and give one practical example from our plant and show how you would document your decision or action. For the formative tasks, be ready to define vertical versus horizontal employee relations, list unfair labor practices, describe characteristics of a supportive and inclusive environment, define a permanent employment contract, explain disciplinary action, define selection in HR, explain blended learning, justify conflict resolution mechanisms, define performance management, define mentoring, list customer service expectations, and explain outcomes-based assessments. Let us finish by recapping the journey and committing to the first steps on the shop floor. We have now reached the end of our session. Today, we built a practical map of human resource management. We covered the foundations of human resource management and employee relations, the labor laws that shape fair practice, the concept of work and standards of conduct and performance, employment contracts and duties, disciplinary action, recruitment and selection, development and training, workplace diversity, performance management, coaching and mentoring, customer service and SLAs, and outcomes-based assessment. My ask for the next shift is simple. Choose one personal issue on your line, use today's framework to diagnose the issue, decide on the right action, and document it fairly. Thank you for your attention and participation in today's session. Let us take this into practice. See you at the next session.